Hi everybody, so today is our next step in TSS VSS. Yesterday we passed our tank water through the filters and dried them in the oven at 100°C. So today they've been sitting in the desiccator overnight, and so today I'm going to collect the dry weights on them and then put them in the muffle furnace at 550°C for an hour, and then tomorrow we'll collect the combusted weights. So we're going to take these over to our balance. So our analytical balance, again, we tap it to wake it up, and once our reading is zeroed out, we're ready to take a weight. And so you'll see me throughout this process spot checking. Underneath the crucible we have all of them numbered again, so we want to make sure throughout the process that we're collecting the weight on the appropriate sample. We always give the balance just about 20 or 30 seconds just to make sure that the numbers don't fluctuate, because it does go out to 4 decimal places, and so occasionally these numbers at the end, they'll gain or lose grams, not grams, but 10,000ths of a gram. So we want to make sure that that is stabilized. So we'll put that back in, we'll grab the next sample. And you can see this little circle shows that the balance is stabilizing. I don't know if you caught that or not. Once it hits 0 and there's no circle up here, this is all motion activated. You can turn this on or off depending on what model balance you have. So you can see here the differences in our tanks. These are part of total suspended solids, so this is our tank water filtered through. And so it collects anything greater than 0.45 micrometers in width. And so, you know, for example, this tank here has very few solids in it. This tank has a lot of solids in it, so does that one. So you can just see things are going to change based on time in your grow out, different treatments you're doing, if you are, you know, adding a carbon source to that tank, you know, your stocking density, the amount of feed, things like that will all affect your solids. Okay, so all of our weights are collected on our filters. Our muffle furnace is just about at 550°C, but once we load our samples, the temperature is going to drop anyway because we have the door open. So we're going to go ahead and get them in there. Again, we have these gloves suited to 1,000° Fahrenheit, not 1,000 degrees centigrade. This is very hot on the inside. It will melt your flesh. Nice pair of long tongs. So we're going to open this up, get a shot inside there. So when you're loading the muffle furnace, it's very hot. You want to be gentle but efficient. So I'm going to move 2 at a time, and you can see that I'm setting the crucibles on the ceramic ribs on the inside. No crucibles are touching any of the walls. If they do touch the walls, sometimes your filters will melt. They'll get too hot. So once they're all in, whoever loads the ovens, unloads the ovens, because you know what order of samples. We tend to, as you are reading a book, so 1 will be in the inside left, and then we'll, I'm going to go ahead and close that door. So then we'll run like 1 through 8, 9 through 16. Well, just as you're reading a book is the best way to keep track of it. It doesn't matter how you keep track of it, it's whatever works for you. So at this point, our temperature dropped down to about 300°C, so we're going to wait until that gets up to 550 centigrade, and then we're going to set our timer for 60 minutes. And when that timer is over, we're going to return the crucibles back into the desiccators, and we'll let them sit overnight, and then tomorrow we'll collect the combusted weights, and then we'll post the formula for you guys so you can calculate TSS VSS. Alright guys, so now we're going to do our last step of TSS VSS. We have our filters combusted yesterday, and so today we're going to collect combusted weight. So you can take a look. There are some variations in the solids that are in the tanks. Some of them have a lot more, some of them look like they're very clear. So the first thing I'm going to do, again, we have gloves on because this oils from your skins can affect the measurements and skew the results of this test. So we're going to handle everything with gloves on and forceps, and I just tap the analytical balance to wake it up. And again, I always spot check myself as I go through this process to make sure that I'm documenting the correct sample number. And so the analytical balance, we have our electrostatic is not working. You'll have this small circle as it's stabilizing. When that circle goes away, your weight is stable, but we always give it a little bit. You can see the last 2 digits sometimes will fluctuate. So we want to make sure that we get an accurate reading. And so we can go ahead and write this down, 14.6510. And so our initial weight should be our lowest weight, and our dry weight should be our highest weight, and our combusted weight should be equal to or greater than our initial weight. And so that's our goal. We want to double check that. Sometimes the accuracy within the analytical balance could be within like 5/10 thousandths of a gram. And so some of our measurements are within the error of the scale. So sometimes we have to reweight things to kind of, you can get a different reading a little bit, maybe by 1 decimal point, right? So, one of the things that affects this in our particular lab is humidity. And so we do run a dehumidifier and make sure that, you know, you're not having a lot of vibrations on your counter that could affect your measurements on your scale. Humidity is a huge factor, so once we installed a dehumidifier, that took care of a lot of that fluctuation on our part. And so once we're done measuring the combusted weight, we can go ahead and throw that filter away. I did that for the first tank, and so I'll grab number 2. We'll open up our balance, we'll close it. And so we're going to go through this process. We have, again, 24 samples that we're running. And so this takes about, if everything is working nicely with your scale, you can get this done in about 30 minutes or so. But sometimes if your scale is not reading or your numbers are fluctuating, sometimes it can take upwards of an hour to get weights on 24 samples. So this is the final step in TSS VSS, and we will go ahead and post the formula for you guys so you can look into this. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to help. So you can see the differences between the filters. This is, again, volatile suspended solids, so what's left on that filter is basically carbon. And you can see some of the differences between the individual tanks. Some of them don't have very much solids, or very many solids, and some have a lot more than others. And so, like this particular sample, you can see flecks in there, have larger particles that we captured. This one is the same, that has a lot of solids in there, but then this one to the left of it is almost clear. There's very little in there.